So we're going to be doing something a little bit different this morning than maybe what we're used to, right? So in Kid Nation, we use a lot of imagination. Now, there's this idea that when you start to get older, the imagination fades. I don't buy into that. So I'm going to need you guys to use your imaginations this morning. So we have this thing in Kid Nation where we either put on like our thinking cap or put on our imagination cap. I need you guys to put on your imagination cap. So everyone get your hands ready. Okay, we ready? Put on your imagination cap. Okay, we ready? Okay, so here's what you're going to imagine. You're a contractor. Okay? What do contractors do? Build stuff. Okay, so you're a contractor, and you've been doing this job for a while. You're a good contractor, right? When you get those contracts, you get them done on time, you get them out, things look good, the customer's happy, everything's rolling in the right direction. Now I want you to imagine that you just got the biggest contract you've ever seen for the biggest renovation job you've ever seen. It's a super, super nice hotel. That was the best place. Everyone wanted to stay there back in the 20s. This was like the roaring 20s when everybody was there. It was classic, and they had like the whatever people wore in the 20s with like the dresses and the whole thing, and this was the place. They got chandeliers everywhere. This place was killer. Can you picture it? Now I'd like you to picture that there was a fire, and then there was a sewer leak, and all the pipes exploded, and it smells real bad, and no one's been there for 80 years. Are you picturing this place in your head? Okay, got our imagination caps on, we got this, right? So now you just got the renovation job where your job is to fix it. You're going to take this massive hotel that's 20 stories tall, and you're going to rebuild the whole thing, and you're going to make it look amazing, and you're going to get it back to the way that it was intended. Can you picture it? For those of you guys that have a bad imagination, check this out. That, coming shortly, right there, that can help you out a little bit, okay? So picture this, right? So it's got rats that are trying to bite you because this is their house, and you're in there trying to fix it, and they got rabies and all the other stuff with it, right? This is awful. Now, I want your guys' help because you guys are killer contractors, right? How are we going to build this? How are we going to fix it? What you going to do? Drill a hole, get all the water out. Nick? Kill the rats. That's a good start. Carl?
Have the rats help us rebuild everything.
Wow, how are you going to get rats to help you? They want to bite your face.
Gotta intimidate.
I like where you're at. Peter, okay, all right. Okay, okay, are you doing all this? Okay, so who's going to help you? Who's everyone? There's a part of the story that I didn't tell you. Hold on. There's a part of the story I didn't tell you. I like where your head's at, so. The people that you have to pick from that are there to help you, you look at your bench and you look at who's going to be the team that's going to rebuild this whole place, and guess what their characteristics are? They're lazy, they smell funny, they're untrustworthy, and they want nothing to do with this because it's a big job, and quite frankly, they'd rather do their own thing. How do you think you're going to get this done? Yeah, this is getting a little rough, right? With that, I'd like to introduce you to the latest sermon series that we're going to be doing here at Grace over the next couple of weeks. D.I.Yahweh. What is DIY? We hear this a lot now. Nick, do it yourself, right? Okay, in the age of YouTube, right, people can do all kinds of different things. Now, here's what's funny. My generation is kind of discovering this idea of do it yourself for really for the most part for the first time. The generation ahead of us was like, yeah, we always could do this kind of stuff. But now that we have YouTube, we can make all kinds of things. I made cheesecake twice, and it was good, right? YouTube, you can learn anything. This whole idea of do it yourself, we're seeing a lot now, and people are able to take some more responsibility with their stuff, okay? So that's DIY, but what is Yahweh? God. Okay, Yahweh is God. So Yahweh is a term that you'll see in Scripture that's attributed to God. Is from that passage that we just read, actually, learning a little bit about Moses. So D.I.Yahweh is the series that we're going to be covering over the next couple of weeks. And the whole idea is how does God get stuff done in this world. Spoiler alert, the busted hotel is creation. The world that God created was designed in perfect harmony. Everything was exactly how it was supposed to be. You had perfect vegetation. You had earth that was actually fruitful, and you didn't have to fight it to grow. God had designed literally a utopia, a perfect ecosystem. And then sin entered in, and we sinned against God and said we know better. And then when that happened, the pipe burst. The sewage flowed, the fire started, and that creation that he built to be a certain way got completely decimated, dilapidated, smelly, full of rats, full of lazy, untrustworthy people who are selfish and want nothing to do with God and want everything to do with themselves and what's most important to them. And that's where we live. Right? But God, through Jesus, offered payment for our sin, offers a right relationship with him. He is in the process of literally redeeming that whole creation, that entire building. And the crazy part is, he looks at the lazy, the untrustworthy, the bums, the liars, the cheats, the us, and says, you're my team. You're the team of people that I'm going to rebuild this with. He could snap his fingers and do it, but he's about people work. He's about salvation. So God's working on all these different levels where not only is he saving my life and yours through Jesus' death, burial, resurrection, and promised return on the cross. Not only is he doing all of that, but then he directs us on mission to go reach others and to help save others. And all the while, the team that he is building for the work that he is doing of redeeming creation is growing. Now for us, we look at it and we go, I want that done right now. Right? When I clicked the video for the YouTube cheesecake, I was like, I want it now. Took a while to make, but it was so worth it. That cheesecake was killer, seriously. I'm just bragging on myself there. But that's what we're going to be studying over these next couple of weeks. We're going to study how God uses situations to reach people, because a lot of times God will design stuff for us to do, and really all that design is for is to get our attention, because we as people, you know what we're really good at? We're really good at thinking through tasks, thinking through other people and how other people, are thinking. That's hard. But if we say X, Y, and Z, go build this, generally we can wrap our heads around that. And that's how God designs work. So we're going to be studying a lot of this predominantly through one of my favorite dudes of the Bible, Moses, right? Couple quick things about Moses. Who can tell me first thing pops in your head about Moses? Soph. No, you're thinking Jonah. What do we know about Moses? Nicely done. He was the first to use a tablet. That was solid. That was dadjokes.com. That was good. So Moses is the guy that God used to bring the Israelites out of Egypt, right? So the Israelites were enslaved. So we did a little bit of reading, right? And I did that intentionally because we don't have a ton of time to cover all the background. But remember what was going on. God's people were enslaved in Egypt. They were building things for the Egyptians. They were building bricks. They were the workforce for the Egyptians. Now, God's people for years and years and years and years and years cried out, why do we have to do this? Stop it. Save us, save us, save us. This is awful. Continuously cried out. And then God's answer to save them isn't some big elaborate system. God's answer to save them was a dude. And he called Moses to do that. We're going to be unpacking that now. So let's begin by reading verses 7 through 9 from Exodus chapter 3. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. So, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. What's that a picture of? Mr. Magoo, yeah. So I'm going to need some help here because remember, we got the young ones with us too, right? They've never seen this before. So who is Mr. Magoo? What's that? He has a dog. Maybe. He's a grumpy old man, okay? Mr. Magoo can't see very well. What's he doing in the picture? He's walking, and that's on a balance beam, right? What happens if he steps to the right or left off that balance beam? So? He would die. He would fall off. But here's the cool thing about Mr. Magoo cartoons, right? He can't see anything. The dude's just walking through life, and things just keep popping up underneath him, and he can go from place to place to place to place to place, and he causes chaos wherever he goes, right? He does have a broken foot, right? So that's Mr. Magoo. Now, here's what's interesting about Mr. Magoo, right? There's a thought process in our society for some people who actually believe that there is a God. Some people believe, yeah, there's a God, and yeah, maybe the Bible has, some of that's all right, maybe whatever, but then they look at God and they say, yeah, but he's not intimately involved. God is not directly involved in the lives of his creation. He created it, and then he's like, spit it off and just let it go. Some people think that. It's not true. Jesus Christ is intimately involved in our lives. He's the one who literally saved us. This is what I call the Mr. Magoo principle, is that Jesus is aware of people's needs and he's prepared to deal with them, okay? So let's go back through those verses. So how is it that Jesus was prepared to deal with this stuff? God says to Moses, I have what? The affliction of my people. I've surely seen it, right? So for the people, for years and 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 years, and a lot more of those, we're constantly going, what is going on? Why are we having to do this? Why are we having to deal with this, God? And God says to Moses, surely I have seen their affliction. Because they didn't feel like that he was seeing their affliction. They didn't feel like God was listening. Maybe they weren't even sure God was real, because why would I be going through such a hard time now? Why would it be so bad? If God is so good, why am I having to make all these bricks? Why can't I pay my bills? Why can't this relationship work if God is so good? Do you hear it? And we find ourselves in that. And God's response to Moses is, surely I have seen their affliction. And remember that Moses came out. He was in a high place within Egypt, right? He comes out from that, and he sees the affliction of his people. He's an Israelite. So he came down from his kind of mountain, I guess, goes down, and he sees it. And does anybody remember Moses' response when he sees this? He goes nuts and he kills somebody. Moses goes crazy, murders someone, and then bails, runs away. And this is the guy God chose, right? Kind of nuts. So when Moses is looking at God and he hears from God, surely I have seen it, picture that you're Moses for a second. Because Moses probably spent the last 20 years in the desert going, God isn't seeing this. God doesn't care. Because if he cared, he would have been doing stuff. And from my perspective, he's done nothing. This is weak. This isn't the God I serve. But then he met God. And God got his attention. And he said, surely I have seen the afflictions. And then he goes on from there and he says, I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, a land flowing of milk and honey. So the question that I have for you is, if God knows what people need and he's prepared to meet those needs, why isn't he doing it? I want you to think. want you to just think about it, kids. Just think. Why isn't God doing it? Just think. I love you. You're an overachiever. I appreciate that. But just think here. If God could just fix everything, why doesn't he do it? Partly because God uses people as tools to reach other people. So think about the people in your lives and the needs that you can see, and stop thinking so much about how's God going to meet this? How's God going to meet this person's need? Look at all the terrible time they're going through. What is God doing? What is God doing? What is God doing? Maybe the reason that you're so enamored with what's going on in someone else's life is because God is calling you to help meet that need. God meets needs for people with people. And now here's what's crazy, right? Moses bailed. Moses ran away from God. And God used this salvation that he was going to bring to the Israelites to save Moses. Moses was out. He was gone. He was doing his own thing. He had a family. He had moved away. He wasn't thinking about Egypt in positive terms for sure. And God pulled that guy back and used the need that he had pointed out so long ago to help save Moses. Do you see it? I know we're working at a lot of layers here, but this is heavy stuff. So for us, think about that. Who in your own life are you spending time in prayer, which is obviously a good thing. Keep praying. Keep reaching out to God about that stuff. But what needs do you see in someone else's life that God is nudging you in the direction to meet? Is that happening? God is not Mr. Magoo. He's guiding us towards each other. Let's move on. We're going to read these next couple of verses in 10 through 12. He says, "Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Egypt, or children of Israel, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" He said, "But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." Let's go ahead and flip the next slide. So what's that a picture of? Tom Cruise, okay. Anybody know the movie? Mission Impossible. Okay, so Mission Impossible. This is a little bit more recent reference, so hopefully kids will get this one. But Mission Impossible, super cool series, right? It's all about spies, right? Every Mission Impossible starts out one way. So what happens is there's some kind of crazy action sequence, and then they get a mission given to them. And it starts out with the phrase, "This is your mission, should you choose to accept it? This is your mission, should you choose to accept it?" And then it goes off into all of this crazy mission and blah, 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 blah. Now, the person who got that, they have a choice to make. What's the choice? Nick? Yeah, choose to do the mission or not, right? So they can choose to do the thing or they can choose not to do the thing, okay? So for us, we can look at something and we can look at a way that God's nudging us and we can say, okay, God, I either choose to do that or God, I choose not to do that. But let's look at some of the characteristics of what God has done here for Moses. He says, "But I will be with you." Now, here's something that can be really frustrating for us. God says, go interact with that person. Talk to that person all the time. Pray for that person all the time. I am working at reaching that person. Love that person. And you're like, okay. And then you do. And there's all kinds of things that maybe aren't lovable. There's all kinds of things that are frustrating. You get frustrated. This person's not getting it. They're not following God. What are you doing here, God? Why did you direct me to do this? This is super frustrating. How am I going to do this? And his response to Moses was, you're going to talk to Pharaoh and you're going to tell Pharaoh to let his entire labor force go. And Moses is like, God, that's dumb. That makes no sense, God. How's that going to work? I don't get this at all. And God's response is, but I'll be with you. Do you see how someone who doesn't have that kind of mature relationship in God would look at that and just go, thanks? What's that going to do? What it's going to do is, it's literally the creator of all things saying he's got your back. The creator of all things has got your back and is directing you and is guiding you in people work. So think about that for us now, right? Let's go ahead and flip to the next. The Mission Impossible principle is pretty simple. It's that Jesus' call for your life is designed to be impossible unless you rely on him. It's designed to be that way, right? If God gave us a bunch of Legos and said you could just do this, we could do that. God doesn't give us Legos. He gives us people. And people work is impossible without God. It's impossible. We can build a building. We can mow a yard. We can't reach people for God without God. It just doesn't work. And it's designed to be that way. Now, this particular scene in Mission Impossible was pretty crazy. So you got Tom Cruise, who's doing Tom Cruise things. At the time, that was the tallest building in the world. I don't know if it still is. But he's got this like magnetic glove. So if that glove fails, bye-bye Tom Cruise. No Mission Impossible 10 or whatever we're up to now, right? And he's holding on to this. I think it's a pretty stark image. God tells us to go be about reaching people for him, to connect with people, to introduce people to Jesus, to live a life to him, to literally follow him, and says, if you don't stay connected with me, none of this will work. You can try every possible way with every clever mechanism of phrase, and none of it will matter. You have to rely on me. If you don't rely on me, Moses, you're going to go to Pharaoh, and you're going to say, let my people go, and he's going to say no, and he's going to say no, and he's going to say no, and oh, by the way, when you say like the fourth time, he's just going to chop your head off because he's done listening to you. But if you follow me, if you listen to me, and if you rely on me, this mission that you've chosen to accept, you can trust that I'll accomplish it for my glory and your good. Whose glory? God's glory, right? It's all for God's glory and for our good because we get to follow him. So that is what he's called Moses to do. So for us, two questions. First is, have you accepted your mission? Okay? You've decided to follow God. That's amazing. God has literally brought you from death to life. That's phenomenal. Period. Amazing. He didn't just save you for you. He saved you to reach other people. So now have you accepted the mission that he has called you to reach people and to call out to people and point people to Jesus? And if you've accepted that mission, how much of that time have you spent just relying on things you know and not him? A lot of questions that all point back to God. What role does Jesus play in your life? Where's he at? The afterthought? Because if he's the afterthought, you're on the side of the building, the glove fails, you're toast because you didn't use it properly. Make sense? All right. So let's continue now. We're going to pick up and we're going to reread verse 12. He said, but I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Now, I call this the need to know basis principle. Okay? Now, when that says top secret, right? When I say top secret, what pops into your head? No one else can know about it, okay? Mysterious, okay? Anything else? It's a mystery, okay? We'll take that. So top secret, right? So we hear this a lot in terms of like politics or in terms of militarism, right? So let me ask a question, right? If I'm a general and I have a plan that I need to attack this country and I need to win this war, right? If I'm the general and Max is one of the guys on my front line, right? He's one of my infantrymen. So I have a 7-step plan on how I'm going to take out this whole country. how many steps of the plan am I telling Max? 3. 1, okay. Why not all 7? He's got a gun. What's that? Thanks, son. There you go. He said, because I'm going to die first. So, no, seriously, why not, right? He might blab. I don't need him to know the things that everyone else is going to be doing. What I need him to know is what he needs to do to get to the next step. Now, the reason that that's important is if God told us everything we were going to go through on this mission, most of us would say no thanks. We just would. If God said, I'm calling you to reach person B, and that person that's in your class that you see 5 days a week, and you have this relationship with them, and I'm pointing you out, and I'm shoving you in the direction of reaching out to them on behalf of Jesus and sharing Jesus' love with this person, and I'm nudging you in that direction, that's what you need to do. But guess what? It may cause failures in other relationships by doing that, right? There may be all of these other consequences that you don't even see. God shares with us what we need to know to follow him. Where I'm getting that from is he tells Moses, this is one of my favorite Bible jokes. He tells Moses, guess what? You're going to know that I sent you. I'm sending you to talk to Pharaoh, right? You're going to know that I sent you when you bring all of my people back and you're here at this mountain and you serve me. What he doesn't tell him is there's going to be 10 plagues, there's going to be death, there's going to be terrible times, there's going to be people thinking Moses is crazy, there's going to be constant strife, there's going to be frustration, and no air conditioning. Moses knew the no air conditioning part. But he doesn't tell him any of that stuff. Now, is God being disingenuous? No. God knows the lazy, selfish person that he's called. And God gives us what we need to follow him, and he directs us and tells us what we need to know. Because guys, if God would have told me specifically all of the things that me and my family would go through in moving to Ocala, I don't think we ever would have moved to Ocala. But at this stage, when I get to see what God has done in the lives of people and brought us into relationship with people, I get to sit at the foot of the mountain, not knowing what the next steps are, but getting to see back to what God has done up until this point, and I'm stoked. But there were so many times when I wasn't. And there'll be times again when I'm not. That's going to happen. But God tells us what we need to know when we need to know it, because he knows who he's called to reach people. Jesus tells us just enough to keep us in the game, because he knows what we're capable of. So, a lot of little principles to get us to the big idea. Our big idea this week is that Jesus uses people to meet the needs with the purpose of salvation. Okay? A lot of words to say. There are needs that people have. God has designed us to help meet those needs, all with the idea of introducing them to who Jesus is. So in our story, who are the people who had the needs? The Israelites, right? So the Israelites had a need. Years and years and years and years and years worth of needs, right? We're talking pain. We're talking literally being enslaved. Now, were they asking for a land of milk and honey? No, they just wanted the whipping to stop. They just wanted the beatings to stop. That was their need. God had so much more for them. Moses just wanted his people to not be hurting. Moses, that's all he wanted. But God had so much more for him. For us, there are people in our lives who don't know who Jesus is, and meeting needs of theirs, reaching out to them, living life with them, showing them how much we care for them, meeting those physical, emotional needs. God uses that to help introduce them to salvation. we are a part of this renovation project. Remember what it looked like, right? So this is just some of the ways that we've done it. Keep going. We fed the homeless. We did bikes for mothers that were in a trialing time. And then also that's a picture of the park that God has directed us to build here. And each of those are examples of physical needs that we in this body helped meet for people, all with the point of pointing them to salvation. And that's what we know up until this point. That's where we're at now. We don't know what Monday looks like. We can look at what God's done up until this point, and we can get crazy stoked about it, about baptisms, about people coming to know God, about relationships growing, about all the ways that God is helping reach Ocala through this small body. That's crazy encouraging. There's amazing stuff going on. But don't forget, let's hit the last slide. That's where we're coming from. That's where it didn't start, but that's where it started as far as we would know. He's brought us onto his team. He knows who he picked. He knows all of our issues. He knows all of our baggage. He knows who we are and still chose us and still wants us to be a part of that renovation project. We've got a couple of rooms done. A couple of things are really going well. New wallpaper, all of it. That's the God we serve, who has a project like that, and instead of just fixing it, thinks about the people who live in it and calls us to follow him and be a part of that project. You're already got your overalls on. You've been painting. Let's continue the work of renovation of people, because that's what God cares about. Cool? Father, Lord, you're good. And Lord, the way that you've used Jesus to save the world and to continue to point us towards you is incredible. Father, for those in the sound of my voice right now, I just ask that you would point out the areas of our life that we have not submitted to you. That you would point out what it is we're holding back. What sin in our lives are we allowing to become so important that it's stopping us from meeting the needs of the people you've called us to? Lord, if there's someone in the sound of my voice that doesn't know you, Father, I pray that your Spirit would make it abundantly clear to them how much they need you. That busted hotel looks normal for them, but it's not. It's not the way that it was intended. It's not what you designed. It's what we created through our own sin. And our sin leads to death. But your gift is eternal life through your righteousness. Jesus, you are worthy this morning and so many others. It's in your name we pray. Amen. We'll now take some time to reflect on how God's speaking.